Lots covered in today's show. We're going to go over a player who ESPN believes that the Detroit Lions going to draft with the 28th pick. We're going to get to that player. How about Josh Sweat, a free agent being linked to the Lions? We're going to go through him. Za'Darius Smith, could the Lions look to cut him? We're going to talk about that. Michael Vick talks about Jared Goff and off-season rankings. But before we get into today's video, hit that like button. Let's get to 300 likes. That's what the goal is for today. Let's get this thing started. Now it is draft season, and Field Yates does a lot of mock draft, and he does a show every week with Mel Kiper Jr. talking about the draft, and he has a specific person he believes that the Detroit Lions could look to draft. He says Zabel had a great week at the Senior Bowl, and he had me thinking about cornerback Quinyon Mitchell in 2024. Like Mitchell did before in 2024 draft, Zabel dominated at the lower college level and then looked every bit the part against top competition at the All-Star event. Zabel projects as an interior player in the NFL, which is the only part of the Lions' offense that looks vulnerable paper in 2025. He is powerful and marries his quick feet with active hands and pass protection and is ridiculously tough. He plays like a Detroit Lion. He is a tackle, but again, he's projected to go on the interior. Zabel, he's a big guy, 6'6", 305. He'll be drafted this year. And he's projected, obviously, with the 28th pick. And look, if you were to put him on the Detroit Lions offensive line and say they were going to get rid of Graham Glasgow, that would be, look, I am fine with getting offensive line. I want to get an edge. But you don't know how the draft goes, right? What if a lot of players are gone and there's value pick with the guard position? Then you got to do it because you look how important that the offensive line is. It's offense and defensive line. Trenches win. That's what it's all about. We have noticed it. We have talked about it, and we have watched it. So, look, I want the Lions to get an edge, but if a lot of the edge prospects are not there, I'm all about getting a BPA, and if that's offensive line, that's offensive line. That's my thought on it, and I think that would be a solid pick. Folks, let's get to 300 likes in today's video. That's the goal. With your help, it can happen. Let's go ahead and get into Marcus Davenport. Should the Detroit Lions look to bring him back? Christian Boer of SI.com, he talks about it. He says, when Davenport signed last season, it was for a one-year, $6.5 million deal. Because of the injury, it's slight decrease in his market value. Likely, if Detroit were to bring him back, I'm predicting a one-year deal with a lower base salary. Incentives based around playing time and production could be added to it, elevated his overall contract value. What did he do this year? Marcus Davenport was integral into doing nothing with 0.5 sacks, one solo tackle. He only played in 2 games. The projected deal that they got going on here is a one-year, $5 million deal for Marcus Davenport. Here's the thing. Why bring Davenport back? He was injury-prone in New Orleans, injury-prone in Minnesota, injury-prone in Detroit. There is something that follows him. It's called being injury-prone, and that is something that we don't need on this football team. We need to have players that can be on the field. We need to have players that are available to play. And we have the ability to upgrade the edge position this offseason. We have been talking about this position all freaking, the 6 years it seems like. So fix the freaking position. There's no reason not to. I don't see a problem with taking the time, whether it be in free agency, in the draft, or both, to fix this spot. Now, Mike Payton from A to Z Sports is a player who believes he could fix this spot. He says, he's talking about Josh Sweat. He says, I view him as a good Detroit Lion. I think he's got the ideal skill set complement to Aiden Hutchinson. He's not just an only pass rusher, but he certainly take advantage of matchups that we saw in the Super Bowl. You can give him a matchup one-on-one and he'll feast. He can win in the fitness and deep as Ben, and he can win with his length and power as well. You know, he's got really good complementary moves and complement skill set. Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best pass rushers in football who's consistently, being asked to basically beat double teams. So Detroit could desperately utilize another pass rusher on the opposite side. He can also feast on the other side. And oh, I would love that, to have Sweat on this team. What did he do this past season? 8 sacks, 27 solo tackles, 9 forced fumbles, 15 quarterback hits. Josh Sweat, he's the big body we're looking for. He's the 6'5", 265, the prototypical size for the Detroit Lions defensive line and how they build it. And guess what, folks? He's 27 years old. So we're talking about a younger pass rusher, right? Ideal fit, free agent. What is his projection per spot rack? He's projected to get a 3 years, $56.4 million deal, an average salary of $18.8. The Lions can absolutely afford that. 110% they can afford that. To me, this is ideal. This would be great. I would love Josh Sweat. You've seen on my free agent rankings and what I want the Lions to do. Josh Sweat is one of my higher priorities. I would love for the Lions to get Sweat on this team. It makes all the sense in the world. Why is that? You're getting a guy who's young, who can get after the passer, and he's not going to cost the biggest amount. Makes sense. We got the money. I would love to do it. This is a lot of sense, if you ask me. Let's get to 300 likes, folks. With your help, it most likely can happen. Smash that like button. Let's get to Mike Morales of Sporty News talking about Marcus Davenport. He says, although those stats don't point a major production in 2-year games, having him on the field meant teams couldn't solely focus on Hutchinson. Therefore, Hutchinson and the rest of the defense were more productive. Despite the likelihood of Davenport returning to Detroit in 2025, Slim, Za'Darius Smith has made it known that he'd like to stick around, and there's a high chance that the Lions take a young pass rusher in the draft who's likely to arrive without any health concerns like Davenport. And we've talked about this defensive line all offseason so far. I don't think the Lions should cut Za'Darius Smith. We literally just talked about Marcus Davenport for $5 million a year. Za'Darius, this is $6 million a year. Why on God's green earth would you cut Smith to bring in Davenport? Smith, did he get banged up a little bit? Yeah, he's older. But it's not even close to Davenport. He's way better than Davenport. This shouldn't even be a thought process, in my opinion. Look, if you want to restructure his contract, cool. But Za'Darius Smith, by far, is way more value, in my opinion, on this defensive line than Marcus Davenport, okay, who you gave $6.5 million last year to. So, no, we gave up a draft pick, keep Smith on the team, and still bring in a Josh Sweat or bring in a player in the draft. You could still do that. So, I mean, 6.5 milk. Give me a break. I don't like hearing it. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Restructure the contract if you're worried about money. Mike Vick, show some love to our quarterback, Jared Goff. He says, Detroit Lions, Jared Goff is a football savant. He will be okay without Ben Johnson. Folks, I do believe that the Detroit Lions will be okay without Ben Johnson. I think that the offense is, it's going to have some hiccups, guys. That's going to happen, right? Anytime you have a new scheme put in, offense, defense, there's going to be hiccups. With that said, folks, we still have great players. It's not all Ben Johnson last year. The scheme, for sure, is Ben Johnson, right? But you got great players. Your offensive line is one of the best in football, if not the best, right? You got a Pro Bowl quarterback in Jared Goff, who is an MVP candidate. You got 2 great running backs in Sonic and Knuckles. You got tight ends galore. Your wide receivers are great, right? So this offense is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to put up 33 points a game or anything like what we did last, especially in the beginning of the season. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm not worried about this offense. The defense, that's we got to see, right? We got to see what the defense can do. The defense is the defense. We've got to worry about the defense. If the defense can elevate its status, it can hold up for some of those hiccups that's going to be taking place at the offense. But it's the defense, folks. It's the defense. They always say, like, when it comes to elections, it's the economy, stupid. Well, for the Lions, it seems to be it's the defense right now, right? Article talked about 7 major things that the Lions got to worry about this offseason. Here are the 7 subjects that they were talking about. It says, how will the team to transition to the new 2 coordinators? That's going to be the number 1, 100%. I think the defense will be fine in the transition, but it's going to be a little bit with John Morton. It's going to be a little bit different there. That is an offseason concern, 100%. 2 is how the best complement to Aiden Hutchinson. Absolutely. We have been talking about this. I agree fully in this article. Where to find cornerback help? Yeah, 100%. What are we going to do? Carlton Davis, are they going to pick up a free agent? What? Ennis Rakestraw, is he developing? How to find a long-term solution at the guard position? I'm putting that a little bit down on that list. I do think that Zeitler comes back. The Lions bring him back, right? He goes to right guard. And then I could see a situation where Greg Zabel loses his job because we drafted a guard in the draft, or we drafted a guard this year's draft high. How to bolster the interior defensive line? I would put this higher up on the guard position because we do have injury to Elaine McNeil, so he may not be back for halfway through the season. We do need to get better on that interior of the defensive line. That's how you win football games. Which impending free agent is priorities? Yeah, I'm sure they already got that down, but I think it's going to come down to the bigger ones like Derek Barnes, Carlton Davis, right, those guys. But if you're talking about Skip and all these others, they're going to try to get that done. Who gets the early extension? Jay Kerb. He's going to get that bad boy. That's at the very bottom of the list. I already feel like Brad Holmes probably already has a lot of that. The priorities for extensions, we've seen what he did with Jared Goff, Penei Sewell, right? We've seen what he did all last year with these extensions, Saint, Brown, and Decker. So I'm not worried about that at all. Not worried about that at all. Make sure you hit that like button, folks. We're going to be dropping videos. We'll be live tomorrow. On Thursday, I'm actually going to be at Rockford Bowling. Be there, hanging out, talking Lions. I'll be on ESPN Radio tomorrow as well. Come over to Rockford Bowling. We're going to be, I'm going to be hanging out there. All right? So come out and hang out. My fiance's dad owns the bowling alley. So we're there hanging out, doing some candy bars and stuff like that. So come hang out in Rockford on Thursday at 6 p.m. With that said, folks,